How to stop letting small things ruin your day. 8 timeless Stoic lessons. Have you ever had an entire day ruined by something that, looking back now, seems insignificant? A spilled coffee right before you leave the house. A message left unread. Someone cutting you off in traffic. Tiny annoyances. Things so minor they shouldn't matter. Yet they completely shift our mood, our focus, even how we treat others. That's how we start building, grain by grain, a mountain of frustration. The problem is, we don't realize how much these small things affect us. Not until the day feels heavy, our mind exhausted, our patience gone. But what if I told you that it's in these exact moments that we have the chance to train our true strength? Stoicism isn't some distant philosophy, locked away in scrolls and old libraries. It's a living manual, a practical, powerful tool for today. Imagine an invisible armor, not to isolate you from the world, but to protect you from the constant arrows that everyday life shoots your way. This armor isn't made of steel. It's made of perception, presence, and principles. Stoicism teaches us that we don't need to control the world. We just need to build an inner world that no one else can control. Someone cuts in line. You get angry. You feel disrespected. But what if instead you saw it as a mistake? Or as someone in a rush for a real reason? The external event is the same, but your peace changes entirely based on the story you choose to tell yourself. Stoicism reminds us that it's not the event that disturbs us. It's our judgment of the event. And that's the liberating secret. Power doesn't lie in the world's hands. It's in yours. In this video, you'll discover 8 simple but powerful Stoic lessons that can change the way you deal with life's daily challenges. They're not abstract ideas. They're practical tools you can apply starting today. Tools that can turn your mind into a calm, steady refuge, even in the middle of chaos. Before we begin, I invite you to leave a personal commitment in the comments. My peace is not negotiable. Let this be our shared reminder. A silent agreement that your peace doesn't depend on others but on your own choices. Shall we begin? Part 1. The weight of a problem is yours to choose. Have you noticed how something that deeply irritates one person barely phases another? A loud noise, a delayed reply, a minor criticism. While some people explode internally, others simply take a breath and move on. The difference isn't in the world. It's in the lens through which each person views the world. Our mind works like a magnifying glass. It can blow a minor issue out of proportion until it feels enormous. Or it can choose to set the lens aside and see the situation for what it really is, small and insignificant. Choosing the lens is up to us. And even if it feels automatic now, it's something we can train. Imagine a single drop of water. Now imagine that same drop under a microscope. It appears vast, complex, maybe even threatening. But when you step back, you realize it's just a drop, a detail. Something you'd never have noticed if you hadn't insisted on examining it. That's how we deal with daily annoyances. They only become monsters when we feed them with attention. In Stoicism, Epictetus teaches, what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about those things. It's not the delayed bus, the rude comment, or the messy kitchen that steals your peace. It's the exaggerated importance you assign to those events. How many times have you said, "That ruined my day," as if one moment had the power to destroy all the hours that followed? But what really happened? The problem lasted 5 minutes. The irritation, the anger, the mental replay, that's what lasted hours. And we have to admit, that wasn't caused by the event, but by our decision to dwell on it. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and a master Stoic, wrote in his personal journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He governed empires and still found time to reflect on the impact of small things. If someone carrying the weight of an empire could filter what deserved his energy, why can't we do the same? Think of the mind like a muscle. At first, even light pressure feels overwhelming. But with repetition, what used to weigh you down becomes manageable, even unnoticeable. At first, everything seems offensive, personal, unforgivable. But with attention and patience, you begin to realize What once consumed you now barely scratches the surface. Let's be honest, it's not easy. Sometimes all we want is to vent, to complain, to explode. And that's okay. Stoicism doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means not being enslaved by them. It's about recognizing that even when emotion hits hard, there is always a moment between the stimulus and your response. And in that space, there is freedom. Freedom to say, this really isn't that important. Freedom to decide whether or not something deserves to ruin your mood. Freedom to not give a spilled coffee more value than it actually has. The next time something irritates you, ask yourself, will this matter an hour from now, tomorrow, next week? If the answer is no, then it's probably wiser to let it go. Take a breath. Don't amplify what should have stayed a whisper. The world won't stop testing you. But you can train your mind not to hand over entire portions of your day to meaningless frustrations. You may not control what happens, but you always control how big a role you allow it to play in your day. And that, in itself, is a powerful form of freedom. Part 2. Control is the new superpower. There's a Stoic phrase that serves almost like a map to emotional freedom. Some things are up to us, others are not. It sounds too simple to be revolutionary, but in that simplicity lies enormous power. This idea, known as the dichotomy of control, is one of the pillars of Stoicism. And when you truly apply it to your everyday life, you'll find that many of your frequent frustrations begin to fade. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. Another driver cuts you off recklessly. Your heart races, your anger flares. But ask yourself, what exactly is under your control here? That driver's behavior? The chaos on the road? The impatience of others? None of that. The only thing you truly control is your response, your focus, your decision to either fuel that fire or let it burn out. Stoicism doesn't deny discomfort. It's not about becoming numb or detached. On the contrary, it's about being fully conscious. Once you understand the boundary between what you can and can't control, something shifts inside you. You begin to conserve energy. You stop fighting the entire world and start focusing on the one thing that truly belongs to you, yourself. Epictetus, once a slave and later one of Stoicism's greatest voices, taught that some things are within our power, our opinions, aims, desires, and aversions. Everything else is not. That's the line. On one side, everything that drains you, other people's opinions, the weather, the news, the traffic, the economy. On the other side, your internal world, your focus, your attitude, your choices, your way of responding. Modern life has conditioned us to try and control everything, our image, our outcomes, even other people's behavior. And paradoxically, the more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more anxious and frustrated we become. Stoicism offers a powerful counterintuitive insight. Instead of trying to control everything, focus only on what's truly yours, and master that. Whenever you feel emotionally shaken, ask, is this under my control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, act with wisdom. This simple mental filter can save you from 1,000 storms. Imagine applying this to everyday life. The rain ruins your plans? You can't stop the rain, but you can adjust your attitude and embrace the change. Someone criticizes you unfairly? You don't control their judgment, but you do control whether or not you internalize their words. The line is long, you can't speed it up, but you can choose how to use that time. The mind that tries to control the uncontrollable is constantly at war. The mind that understands its own limits begins to know peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's perhaps the clearest definition of a superpower we'll ever get. Not the ability to bend the world, but to completely transform how we inhabit it. Control what you can, accept what you can't. Between those two actions lives serenity, and those who cultivate serenity in a chaotic world gradually become unshakable. Part 3. Emotions are temporary, decisions are not. How many times have you made a decision in the heat of emotion and deeply regretted it later? Words spoken in anger, a message sent in frustration, bridges burned out of pride, small choices that, if postponed just a few minutes, might not have happened at all. Emotion is intense, but temporary. Decision is not. It leaves marks, consequences, and lasting effects that often outlive the moment. Stoicism teaches us to recognize this difference. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In that line is a powerful principle. When we react in anger, we're not just responding, we're becoming like the very thing that hurt us. We're surrendering control of our behavior to a fleeting feeling. It's important to understand that feeling isn't the problem. Acting on the feeling, that's where the danger lies. Anger, fear, frustration, sadness, they're all valid, deeply human emotions. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress them. It asks you to pause, to create a space between what you feel and what you do. In that space, wisdom lives. Think of a storm. It rolls in suddenly, rattles the windows, floods the streets, but no matter how intense it seems, it always passes. Emotions are storms, and when you try to move through life in the middle of them, you risk damage to yourself and others. But when you wait, when you take shelter, when you allow the clouds to clear, your vision sharpens. Every time you feel something deeply, resist the urge to act immediately. Breathe. Observe. Let the emotion come and let it go. When the waters recede, your inner clarity returns. The Stoics believe that virtue lies in reason, not cold, detached logic, but clear, grounded awareness. Acting from that place is freedom. Acting from impulse is bondage. Epictetus reminds us, it's not events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we form about them. Anger, for instance, often arises from a sense of injustice. But how often has something you interpreted as unfair turned out to be a misunderstanding, or simply not what you thought it was? That's why the pause is so powerful. It's not weakness, it's strategy. It's the sacred space between impulse and action, the place where you choose who you are, instead of reacting to who hurt you or what went wrong. Next time anger flares, try not responding. When anxiety tightens your chest, hold your decision. When sadness weighs on you, just watch. Emotions are clouds passing through the sky of your mind. They are not the sky itself. And when they leave, because they always do, let your choices be ones made not in a storm, but in stillness. Emotion is like a strong wind. Decision is like an anchor. A balanced life is built by anchoring deep, not by reacting wildly. True strength in Stoic practice is not about never being shaken. It's about refusing to let the shaking dictate the course of your life. Because to feel is human, but to choose wisely, that is what makes you free. Part 4. Don't amplify what should be silenced. Have you ever found yourself obsessing over a minor offense for hours, or even days? Maybe it was a passive-aggressive comment, a dismissive look, or a small criticism. Things that could have been brushed off but instead became mental loops, playing over and over again. The truth is simple. When you give something your full attention, you give it power. What you feed grows. And when you constantly feed what should have been forgotten, you turn it into something bigger than it ever deserved to be. Stoicism teaches that wisdom often lies in knowing what doesn't deserve a response. Seneca warned against wasting energy on petty provocations. For him, true strength of character revealed itself not in reacting to everything, but in rising above the noise. We often feel the urge to defend ourselves, to respond, to correct the misunderstanding. But let's be honest, most of that urge doesn't come from reason. It comes from the ego. The ego wants to win, to be right, to be acknowledged. And when we let the ego steer the conversation, we abandon our inner peace for the illusion of victory. Picture a campfire. It only burns if someone keeps throwing in wood. When you respond to a provocation, when you keep mentally repeating an offense, you're throwing in fuel. But when you stop feeding it, when you pause, when you walk away, the fire dies down. Before reacting to something, ask yourself, is this really important? Does this actually change anything? Does this deserve my time, my energy, my mental clarity? If the answer is no, then silence becomes strength. And it's not a weak silence. It's a mature, intentional, protective silence. One that says, I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to win every time. I choose peace over pointless noise. There's a kind of silence that heals, a silence that responds with self-respect, that shows you are rooted enough not to be swayed by every passing opinion. And in today's world, that's a rare form of power. Modern life pressures us to react constantly, to comment, correct, defend, engage. We've become emotional tripwires, set off by the smallest things. But Stoicism invites us to step out of that pattern, to realize that not everything deserves a reaction, and that more often than not, the wisest answer is no answer at all. Epictetus said, "It is better to conquer your anger than to take revenge on your enemy." In choosing silence, you're not losing. You're winning where it matters most, within yourself. This doesn't mean avoiding every conflict or staying quiet when something truly matters, but it does mean having the discernment to recognize what's essential and what's just noise. Every day, small irritations will test your peace. You don't have to react to all of them. Choose. Filter. Let go. Because the moment you stop feeding the trivial, it loses its grip on you. And in that mature silence, you're not retreating. You're rising. Inner peace isn't won by defeating others in arguments. It's earned by refusing to enter battles that were never worth fighting in the first place. Part 5. Peace lives where you stop reacting to everything. We live in a world that demands constant responses. Comments, notifications, provocations, opinions. It's as if everything is calling for your attention, asking for a reaction. Every disagreement becomes a battle. Every misstep, a personal offense. And in the middle of all that noise, we lose something sacred, inner peace. Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. It invites us to cultivate a state of presence and self-governance where not reacting becomes a sign of strength, not weakness. Marcus Aurelius said, "You always have the option of having no opinion." That doesn't mean being apathetic. It means choosing where your energy goes and where it doesn't. Not everything around you requires your involvement. Not every conflict deserves your presence. Not every opinion needs your correction. A mind that reacts to everything is constantly drained. A mind that chooses its responses carefully finds space to breathe, think, and remain grounded. Imagine your attention as a battery. Every unnecessary reaction drains a bit of it. And before you know it, you're running on empty, mentally and emotionally, without even facing a single major crisis. Just hundreds of small, pointless drains. Resist the urge to respond immediately. When you hear something you disagree with, pause. When you're provoked, wait. When bad news hits, observe. That space between stimulus and response, that's where peace is built. A Stoic doesn't deny emotion. He just refuses to be owned by it. He doesn't escape the world. He navigates it with clarity. In a chaotic environment, calm becomes a conscious decision. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more admirable than a person who remains calm in the midst of chaos." And that chaos, in our times, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's made of overload, of opinions, pressures, judgments. In the middle of it all, tranquility becomes a kind of sanctuary. And that sanctuary is found when you realize you don't have to reply, engage, or react to everything. This isn't about withdrawing from life. It's about knowing when to speak and when silence serves you better, when a reaction would only feed the fire, when peace is more important than being right. Real power lies in restraint, in choosing your battles, in knowing that not every invitation to conflict deserves an RSVP. The world will keep testing your limits, but you can build a space inside yourself where only the essential is allowed in. A quiet place where you don't echo every sound, where you can listen, understand, and act, not from impulse, but from clarity. That's where real freedom begins, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom from the compulsion to react to everything around you. Because peace doesn't come from silence outside, it comes from silence within. Part 6. You don't have to win every little battle. There's a subtle trap that many of us fall into without noticing. The constant need to be right, to win the argument, to prove we know more, see more, understand more. At first it feels harmless, even justifiable. But if we look deeper, we often find that what's really speaking is the ego. The ego loves conflict. It feeds on debates, on victories, on being seen and acknowledged. But the price of keeping the ego satisfied is steep. Because more often than not, in order to win an argument, you lose your peace. In proving your point, you damage the connection. In being right, you walk away feeling tight, not free. Stoicism offers a radical path to freedom. You don't have to win, not every time, not with everyone, not over everything. Seneca wrote that the greatest wealth is a peaceful mind, and that peace only becomes possible when you realize there's no real glory in defeating someone else. The real triumph is mastering yourself. Picture a heated conversation. The other person is exaggerating, provoking, misrepresenting. Everything in you wants to respond, defend, correct. But then something shifts. You take a breath. You pause. You decide not to enter the ring, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You see that there is nothing to gain there. Ask yourself during a disagreement, does this argument deserve my energy? Will this lead to clarity or just more tension? Will it actually help anyone or only feed egos? If the answer is no, then walk away. Choose peace. Preserve what truly matters. Modern life trains us to be reactive, to answer, to be quick, to never let anything go unanswered. But the Stoic isn't interested in every opportunity to speak. He's interested in every opportunity to be wise. He doesn't waste time trying to plant seeds in dry soil. He doesn't explain things to those who don't want to understand. He knows when silence is more powerful than 1,000 carefully chosen words. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best way to avenge yourself is to not become like those who hurt you. In other words, when you refuse to engage in petty battles, you are winning at a level the other person may not even understand. The paradox is this: when you let go of the need to win on the outside, you begin to win on the inside. You no longer rely on someone else's agreement or applause to feel centered. And in that state, you become immune to the small provocations that used to drain you. It takes strength to stay silent. It takes maturity to not fight. And it takes wisdom to know which battles are truly yours to fight. This doesn't mean never speaking up. It means knowing when your words are tools and when they're just noise. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Your peace is worth more than your pride. And real victory is this: to face life's challenges without losing your balance. To remain calm when everything invites chaos. To refuse the games that others expect you to play. Because in the end, small battles won by the ego never amount to the deep peace your soul is searching for. Part 7. Small annoyances, great teachers. Most of our days are not defined by major tragedies or dramatic events. They're shaped by the small, ordinary moments. A slow line, a glitchy app, a noisy neighbor, a dropped internet connection. And oddly enough, it's in these unremarkable details that our real strength, or lack of it, is revealed. We often wait for big challenges to prove our resilience. But the true tests of emotional maturity don't come with warning signs. They show up as minor delays, brief discomforts, and frustrating interruptions. These are not enemies to be avoided. They're disguised teachers offering powerful lessons. Stoicism invites us to shift our perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single question reframes everything. It turns frustration into curiosity. It moves us from victimhood to growth. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic, believed every difficulty was an opportunity to train the soul. In his meditations, he wrote, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path. What appears to block your way is, in fact, the way forward." The next time something irritates you, imagine it as a mental gym. Each inconvenience is a repetition, strengthening your patience. Each interruption, a lesson in self-control. Each delay, a chance to observe your reactions in real time. Life itself becomes the classroom. You don't need a perfect moment to practice Stoicism, because every small discomfort offers the perfect conditions for growth. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And what better training ground than the countless little tests scattered throughout your ordinary day? They come without invitation, without ceremony, and that's exactly what makes them so powerful. The true Stoic isn't the one who speaks elegantly about virtue. It's the one who remains centered when life is messy, noisy, and far from ideal. Because they've come to understand, what seems small on the outside can be transformational on the inside. Modern culture teaches us to dismiss the ordinary, to chase what's novel, big, and loud. But real transformation doesn't happen in the grand moments. It happens in the quiet, frustrating ones. In the repetition of being interrupted and choosing not to explode. In the delay that tests your patience for the 5th time that week. As this practice continues, something subtle but profound begins to shift. What once irritated you becomes neutral, then invisible, and sometimes, unexpectedly, it becomes a source of gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to strengthen your awareness. Gratitude for one more day of inner practice. The inconveniences don't stop, but you do change. And when you change, the world no longer has to. That's the true shift, transforming what once threw you off balance into part of your training. Because in the end, your greatest teachers may not be books, mentors, or speeches, but the small, relentless annoyances that appear each day, reminding you that peace is not found. It's earned through patience, through presence, and through practice. Part 8. What you feed grows. The human mind is like fertile soil. Everything that gets planted, beliefs, interpretations, thoughts, has the potential to take root and grow. Every day we receive seeds, words, emotions, experiences. Some are seeds of gratitude, calm, and insight. Others are seeds of resentment, anxiety, and frustration. But what determines the harvest is not what falls into the soil. It's what we choose to water. If you constantly focus on what went wrong, on how unfair life is, on what you lack, you are watering weeds. And before long, they spread, filling your mental garden with bitterness, comparison, and noise. Seneca warned us, the mind that dwells on dark thoughts lives in darkness. That doesn't mean you should pretend everything is fine when it's not. It means recognizing that you have a choice in what takes root inside you. Stoicism doesn't deny pain. It teaches you not to dwell in it longer than necessary. Feel it, learn from it, then let it go. Because the more time you spend replaying old stories of pain or failure, the deeper their roots grow. At the end of the day, attention is your water. Focus is your fertilizer. The more you revisit a thought, the stronger it becomes, and your emotional state, your peace, your perspective, will begin to reflect the dominant thoughts in your inner world. Take a moment to observe your internal dialogue. What ideas are you rehearsing daily? Are they strengthening you or wearing you down? Are they leading you toward who you want to be or pulling you away from it? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life." And that truth echoes today more than ever. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can decide which ones get to stay, which ones deserve your attention, your energy, your repetition. Life will always offer reasons to complain and reasons to be grateful, reasons to act from fear and reasons to move with courage. The difference is in which ones you choose to nourish. Complaining is a kind of watering. So is blaming, comparing, and dramatizing. But so is pausing, reflecting, choosing calm, choosing compassion, choosing presence. Some days your mind will feel overrun with negative thoughts. That's normal. But remember, not every thought is true, and not every thought is yours to keep. They are passing clouds, and you are the sky. If your inner world feels chaotic, maybe it's not because the world is broken. Maybe you've simply been watering the wrong seeds. But just as you watered fear, you can water courage. Just as you gave energy to anger, you can give energy to wisdom. The mind is a garden, and every garden depends on the gardener. Because in the end, what you feed grows, and it is you who decides what will bloom within you. Life will always be imperfect. There will always be delays, misunderstandings, messes, and disappointments. You can't avoid them all, but you can decide how much they affect you. Being stoic doesn't mean becoming numb or disconnected. It means actively choosing to live with clarity, presence, and internal strength. It means refusing to be a hostage of every little thing. It means no longer handing over your peace to every irritation that crosses your path. You have the power to change the lens through which you see the world, to stop enlarging what doesn't deserve to grow, to silence what used to take up too much space, to choose your battles with wisdom. The path to serenity isn't magical or instant. It's built one choice at a time, in how you breathe before reacting, in what you let go instead of holding on to, in the decision not to argue over what doesn't matter. And slowly you'll begin to notice a shift. The spilled coffee, the late reply, the rude stranger, they no longer carry the same weight. Because you stopped trying to fix the world and started taking care of your inner state. Peace isn't found in a perfect world. Peace is built in a disciplined mind. Your mind is your home. Protect it, and remember, serenity isn't something you find. It's something you train. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is committed to growth, to becoming stronger, calmer, freer. So I invite you to leave a comment below saying, "I am the guardian of my peace." Write it not just as a phrase, but as a declaration, a personal vow, a quiet promise between you and your own mind. And if this video spoke to you, subscribe, not just to get more content, but to be part of a community. A space for people who are choosing to live with awareness, integrity, and emotional freedom. In the next video, we'll go even deeper. Because once you learn how to protect your peace from the small things, the next step is even more powerful. To reconnect with who you truly are underneath it all. Not what others expect from you. Not the version you've built to please or protect, but the part of you that's been buried and is now ready to breathe. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of something far greater.